Okay, President Trump has ordered Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to Saudi Arabia to meet with King Salman about the disappearance of a Washington Post columnist. This comes as investigators have begun inspecting the Saudi consulate in Turkey, where Jamal Khashoggi was last seen entering nearly 2 weeks ago. The president vows to get to the bottom of what happened.
We are going to leave nothing uncovered. With that being said, the king firmly denied any knowledge of it. He didn't really know. Maybe, I don't want to get into his mind, but it sounded to me like maybe these could have been rogue killers. Who knows?
Meanwhile, CNN's Brian Stelter suggests the president may be to blame for the situation.
To lure someone to a consulate, to dismember the body and to take it back to Saudi, it is a crime of a different caliber. I wonder if you look at what's happened in the last 12 days and you wonder if enemy of the people rhetoric, not just from President Trump, but also then from other world leaders, has anything to do with this, anything at all.
All right, Kate, let me go to you first, because President Trump, obviously, I think, taking it very seriously in that he is sending Secretary of State Pompeo, like don't pack your bags. Pretty much, you're on the plane right now. You're headed to Saudi Arabia, and Mike Pompeo's probably on the ground.
Absolutely. The stakes here are extremely high. The Middle East has changed in terms of the alignment of where things are going. Saudi Arabia is depending on us in terms of the Iran deal. There are lots of things at stake here, and I have a feeling that Secretary Pompeo is going to go ask a lot of very serious, pointed questions. And if the Saudis did this, I know there's some reporting coming out of another network and the Wall Street Journal saying that the Saudis are now preparing a report saying that he came into the building to the consulate, they wanted to interrogate him and accidentally ended up killing him and never made it out of the consulate. Now, we still have to verify that here at Fox, but the point is that this could have been ratcheted up to an even higher level than we've already seen. The stakes here are high, both economically and in terms of national security, and that's why Pompeo was sent on the plane this morning as soon as President Trump talked to King Salman from Saudi Arabia, who denied it. So we'll see what happens, and I have a feeling we're not going to know all the details in the end of exactly what went down inside the consulate.
But the Turks and the Saudis are supposedly working together on this investigation, Pete. And the thing is, like, even with the Turks, sometimes, well, you don't get to pick your allies necessarily. Sometimes you have to have
arrangements. Are our allies at all.
Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
But they are part of NATO, which is the alliance.
Which is part of the reason why NATO has become less and less relevant. And not that the whole alliance is, but when you let in a country that's increasingly becoming a dictatorship and an Islamist country, pretty soon you don't have a real alliance.
But if you have an alliance with Saudi, I mean, it's the same thing. My point is that sometimes your allies do things to you that will disappoint you.
I don't think we know the 2 or 3 layers underneath this. And I think it's not fair to call this a journalist pulled in and killed. We don't know what this guy may or may not have been doing on behalf of governments or not. He shouldn't have been killed either way. But any cover story that we were going to interrogate him and then we accidentally killed him, having been in interrogations, it takes a lot to accidentally kill a guy. Yeah. So clearly that's a bad story to try to cover up, clearly something that was intended toward this guy from the regime.
And if this story is the one that they eventually come out with, Greg, that they had lied to the world and to the president for about 10 days beforehand.
Yeah, I'm just more interested in of course, the Stelter angle, because, you know, I remember President Obama mocking Romney about saying that Russia was a threat, and then remember the whisper that was on the hot mic with Medvedev or whatever his name was about, hey, don't worry. This was happening, you know, while Russian journalists were being murdered in scores, dozens.
Thrown off of their apartment building.
Exactly, and I just don't remember Stelter blaming Obama for that. And also, it bothers me because the Saudis have done a lot of bad things, and we've talked about it on the 5, their treatment of gays, treatment of women, obviously. They didn't start driving until this year. Thank you, Trump. It's a joke. The way they treat Jews, Christians, the myriad human rights abuses, these have been conveniently ignored. But then they get outraged because it's a journalist. It's one journalist. But what Stelter did was he revealed why he could link it to Trump. Right. Like, if he could not link it to Trump, would he have actually brought this up? I don't think so. I'm more interested in Raif Badawi. Do you remember him? He was the blogger who had a religious freedom website. Yeah, right. And he was in prison for that by the Saudis. And he's been sentenced to 10 years and 1,000 lashes. Right. Again, in Saudi Arabia, they still do the lash, okay? So while the journalists are really upset about this one guy, they've been doing this for a long time. And Raif is still in prison. He doesn't get enough attention. He was just a blogger. And he's alive, and I think it would be great if Trump sent Pompeo and brought that guy back.
Yeah, right. Juan, your thoughts?
Well, I thought, to my mind, this is about money. And you see already big American corporations pulling out of the conference that was to be held in Saudi Arabia. And then you see the response coming from the stock market over there. Stock market over there went boom, went way down. And I think there's lots of concern that the Saudis, who now say that if there are threats against them, they will retaliate in even more severe terms, Dana. And I think what they're talking about is economic retaliation against not only potentially the U.S., but the Germans, the French, who have said this is unacceptable.
But
I think
it's not like the Saudi economy has a lot of room. There's not a lot of flexibility there.
They have money and they can redirect their resources, but I don't know exactly how much they can do. Clearly, there's a deal on the table that I think concerns President Trump greatly to sell them some airplanes and armaments.
But the bigger picture there is Iran, right?
So that is all
than just
on
the
the
economy
table. Even as we are talking about American values killing your political critics. It's just wrong.
They're threading a needle. All right, we got to run. Trump touting a red wave in the midterms as some Democrats are now fearing a possible 2016 repeat.
Yes. 3 weeks from tomorrow, voters head to the polls in one of our nation's fiercest midterm battles ever. President Trump touting Republican enthusiasm during his campaign blitz in battleground states. The president also ramping up his attacks against Democrats.
If Nancy Pelosi, crying Chuck Schumer, and the radical Democrats take over Congress, they will try to raise your taxes. They will immediately restore job-killing regulations. They will destroy your Second Amendment. And the Democrats want to open our borders to a flood of deadly drugs and ruthless gangs.
Speaking of Democrats, there are new concerns. The party is overconfident heading into November. Some Democrats reportedly worried that they could see a repeat of 2016. Well, you know why that is, because nobody predicted that Donald Trump was going to beat Hillary. What do you think?
Well, there are a few people who did, so I want to give the people who did predict.
I don't know who, that professor?
A few people who did predict that he would beat her. However, the majority of them, I did not.
Rod
the majority,
Adams, got to say something.
You did?
1 week before the election.
But
How
the
about
majority,
you, Dana? Were you
Terry Schappert. Terry Schappert.
I know that guy at American University predicted, but he also predicts that Trump.
What was your question?
To answer your question, the majority of polling outlets had Hillary Clinton winning with a percentage of like 87% in terms of the chance she had to win.
Right.
Those same polling firms, like 538, they're saying the same thing today about Democrats beating Republicans. Now, that may be accurate. Maybe they've changed their
the polling was that there's no electoral college in the midterm election.
Right. So
the electoral college was what helped President Trump get to victory because he knew what the actual game was and his team plotted out that version. So there's no electoral college that can help the Republicans. They got to do it on their own, but they're doing a lot better than they were.
So the point is that the polling could be more accurate because it's per district, it's not per state and across the country with the electoral college. So that being said, there are lots of questions about what people are saying and who they're going to vote for. Independents are still very split. President Trump's numbers are up in terms of his approval, and it's very clear that based on his schedule, when the White House announced a couple months ago that he would be on the road 3-4 times a week doing these rallies, it was like, okay, it's a lot, but it's paying off, and people are paying attention, and his polling numbers are not only going up personally, but he's actually pulling up the numbers in a lot of these districts that he's targeting.
So, Pete, he's talking a lot about Brett Kavanaugh, a little bit about the economy, not so much the tax cuts. What do you think of his rhetoric on the
No, I think he's setting the terms of the 2018 debate. I mean, you saw the gubernatorial candidate in Georgia talk about how undocumented immigrants are going to be part of the blue wave. And he looks at that and says, no, we still believe in borders and citizenship, and we're going to throw down on that and support our police and stand for the anthem. I don't think the economic results are in, and they're good for this president. This election's not about the economy, in my opinion. It's still a cultural battle that's being fought. People feel like they're losing their country. They saw what happened to Kavanaugh. They're galvanized by it. 2018 feels a lot like 2016 because the elites are telling us that the polls are for the Democrats, but the pulse on the ground is that there's still a belief that this president can deliver. it'll be interesting to see in certain House and Senate races, watching candidates who kind of tepidly support Trump versus candidates who have embraced him in suburban districts, and which way it actually goes. I'm of the belief that embracing the president means you ingratiate yourself to your base, which you need, and independents are more with Trump than we think. And trying to play the tap dance game never works.
All right,
So we'll see what
Dana,
happens.
just picking up on what Katie was talking about. So we see in the Washington Post ABC poll, the president's numbers went up.
Yep.
I think they went up from 41% to, from 36% to 41%. But that's still, he's still underwater, 56%,
But remember,
54%
right.
disapproval.
But remember, he won the presidency with the same approval rating, and Hillary Clinton. He and Hillary Clinton had about the same approval rating going into 2016. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit. The polls actually show that Republicans are doing better in almost every way, and certainly in all
this
the
cycle than 16.
Yes, well, like it was, and only in the last 4 to 5 weeks. And that is partly because Republicans are a little bit late to come home than to focus on an election. But in those states where the Senate Democrats are running for re-election, where Trump won, North Dakota, Missouri, Tennessee, the Republican is starting to pull away. And so I think that things will look a lot better. And there was one poll today that showed that Republicans are actually right neck and neck with Democrats for the House seats as well. So who knows what will happen, and that's why we'll be here to bring it all to you. But the polls look a lot better for Republicans today than they did a month ago.
Yep.
Greg, culture wars?
I think so. I don't think it's about policies or politics, but personality, because the policies are working. And so the Democrats have to boil it down to, so what if he's made America great? He's still a big jerk. I don't know if that's going to work. The problem, the hard part for Republicans, a Trump presidency is measured in dog years. So like for every one thing that happened, in the Obama White House every day, there are 7 things that happen every day in a Trump White House. So Obama might have eaten a dog, but Trump is a dog. I say he's always out doing something, and that's why people are going to tend to forget about the Kavanaugh stuff. Maybe in 2 weeks.
I don't think so. I think it was David French had a piece this weekend that the Kavanaugh hearings and confirmation was more divisive than the 2016 election.
Perhaps.
Because it was just showing a bright light on where the divisions actually are. And I think that it did bring a lot of Republicans, reminded them why they were Republicans in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think that they're starting to see that, especially in those Senate races.
Yeah, I think enthusiasm on the Republican side is definitely up, although I saw a poll today, I think it was, again, Washington Post, that had Democrats in the generic up 11. Which again would be a jump.
It could happen.
We don't know.
Also,
folks.
the Democrats have registered a lot more new voters.
True.
Yeah, well,
the source.
All right. Hillary Clinton facing backlash from both sides of the aisle for dismissing her husband's affair with Monica Lewinsky. How can this be? Details straight ahead on the 5.
No.
All right. Well, Hillary Clinton's shameless hypocrisy is hitting new heights, as if we thought that couldn't happen. The self-proclaimed feminist is making controversial comments that fly in the face of the Me Too movement. Clinton is now defending her husband's infamous affair with former White House intern Monica Lewinsky.
In retrospect, do you think Bill should have resigned in the wake of the Monica Lewinsky scandal?
Absolutely not.
It wasn't an abuse of power?
No.
There are people who look at the incidents of the 90s and they say a president of the United States cannot have a consensual relationship with an intern. The power imbalance is too
Who was
great.
an adult.
So, Dana, your response to
Well,
that.
I just remember, I was going to update myself a little bit, but in 1997, when this all was going down, I was a staffer on Capitol Hill, and I remember thinking, wait a minute, she was the intern, and I took this was wrong. I just knew that it was wrong, and I remember the feminist organizations not defending Monica Lewinsky. Remember, of course, how they try to discredit not just Lewinsky, they called her a Looney Tune, not to mention Juanita Broderick and the other accusers. I also feel like she undercut the abuse and power position that has been used in sexual harassment cases in the workplace. That was the entire basis of the Me Too movement. And I think she's been on record saying how important that movement has been, but she undercut the entire thing. Look, her roadshow with Bill Clinton is going to be fascinating, and we will be able to get probably a block out of it for the next 365 days.
Greg, your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I read that Bill Clinton was also about to do 23andMe till he found out it wasn't a dating site.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, this whole thing with Monica Lewinsky isn't a first. If you Google Mimi Alford, similar story happened under JFK. It was an intern that he deflowered, I guess, in a swimming pool. Or am I right?
I think that sounds right.
Okay,
I'm
if
not
not,
sure.
I probably dreamt it.
I'm not going to fact check that.
But
for you,
anyway,
but I will assume you're correct.
To your point, no feminist would agree with what she said, because in the mind of the feminist, it's all about the power structure, not about age. It's that, you know, here you have a very powerful man and a powerless woman. But you're talking to the wife, and a wife has a different way of looking at things. She's thinking that it's entirely possible that the 22-year-old knew what she was doing. That's how a wife would look to defend her husband. So I also see that. I see her point of view. I can't believe I'm actually defending Hillary here, but she's basically saying that woman, to quote Clinton, had a choice. She had a choice in this matter too. I think
Such a hypocrite.
no, it is. But you know what? Humans are hypocrites when it comes to this stuff. When it happens to you and your wife, or you all of a sudden change the rules.
Yeah. But Pete, the question is, you know, the power structure, of course, is a problem. The definition of sexual harassment is using a position of power to get what you want sexually out of someone who has less power than you do. The President of the United States with an intern, even if she was an adult, of course, is a perfect example of that situation. But as we've seen on the left, the power structure only really matters depending on the political outcome. The reason why feminists defended Clinton in the 90s was because he believed in abortion, so they defended him. And now that we have, you know, different scenarios and different situations, they tend to have a different view of things. And so I'd like your opinion on how you feel about
It's actually amazing how much of it comes back to those cultural flashpoints.
Right.
Where do you stand ideologically on the things that I say I believe in? And as a result, I'll decide whether I believe you or don't believe you. So Hillary Clinton says, I believe all women except those women who were said that they were raped by my husband.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to believe them, and I'm going to deny them. And not only am I going to deny them, I'm going to shame them publicly, which she did multiple times. Of course, power dynamics are here. She made a bargain a long time ago. I stay with my husband. Yeah. I get to run for president. I get to lose twice. Now I get to go on tour with them and continue to pretend like I'm happy to be there. Listen, it's all speculation. I hope they have a great marriage. I don't disparage them that. But that bargain was made, and she every day has to walk that line. And it looks like blatant hypocrisy.
But Juan, what about Hillary's role? Because every time Hillary opens her mouth, it's a gift to the Republican Party, especially before a midterm election. She's not being helpful on the Me Too issue at this point. So what's the end game for her? Is it all really just about herself, or do you think it does benefit the Democratic Party in some way?
No, I don't think it benefits Democrats, and I think we were talking about timing earlier with Messina's comments about Elizabeth Warren, but I think David Axelrod was onto this one when he said, hey, this is not what Democrats want to be talking about. I think my point here would be, look, I think she was asked if her husband should resign. And she said definitely not, because, and this is according to Monica Lewinsky, it was a consensual affair. Nobody ever said this was sexual harassment. This was, Monica was interested in him, and he was interested in her.
But Monica Lewinsky came out in a piece for the Vanity Fair and said, look, at the time, yes, it was consensual, but there was, looking back on it now, the power structure of it doesn't exactly make it consensual.
No.
It really doesn't.
Well, I agree with that. So that's what, you have to look back though, Katie, right? So she said at the time it was consensual. That's why it didn't fall into that larger category. But I'm of a mind that if you go back to the Kennedy, you go back to, I mean, just throughout history, people have different responses at different times. We're at a Me Too, hashtag Me Too moment right now. And remember that Kavanaugh, in the midst of his hearings, he was blaming the Clinton. He said, oh, this is payback for the Clintons.
But
that was nonsense.
But the point that you're making is, I think, really important. It was a consensual relationship. And when things are consensual, the luxury of then changing your mind, looking back, it's not fair, because if there's, you know what I'm saying? I think to your point, like if two people are in a relationship and then all of a sudden years later they go, looking back on it,
I think that's a fair point to make. However, it's the bigger argument of feminists at the time and still today fighting sexual harassment on the definition of someone with power, using that power against someone who doesn't have any. And when you have the President of the United States against an intern setting the bar, of course against.
She was, look, you could argue she was interested in having access to the president. He was
leveraging his power against a young woman, as he did against many women.
But I think that women can also absolutely be entranced by a powerful man.
But the big broader problem, I would argue, and I'll let Dana get the final word, is the feminist argument of what the definition of sexual harassment is and excusing it for Bill Clinton while not.
No, let's just be very clear. If I had said this, or let's just say, like, you know, if Ann Coulter had said this, everyone on the left would have come out and like
You're
wanted
right.
her head on a stake.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton says it, and all of them are silent. That's ridiculous.
Good point.
And this has been going on since 1997, and they have to keep revisiting it because they didn't deal with it then. They didn't deal with it appropriately then. They're not dealing with it appropriately now. Every single interview that they give, they have to answer for it again. So over and over again. Why do you think you lose? This is exactly why you lose. I've been mad since 1997.
She doesn't get mad that often, so it does a lot. But coming up, anti-Trump celebrity Alec Baldwin ratcheted up the rhetoric by urging fellow Democrats to overthrow the government. Up next.
I can't name this song, but I should be able to. Greg?
I don't know either.
Nope, I don't either. All right, after rolling out his Trump parody again on Saturday Night Live this weekend, Hollywood hothead Alec Baldwin, that's an official title, headed to a Democratic fundraiser in New Hampshire to double down on the left's divisive rhetoric.
We need to overthrow the government of the United States under Donald Trump. Not in any violent or unlawful way, but it must be overthrown nonetheless. Let's make America great again by making Donald Trump a casino operator again.
So a lawful overthrow. Juan, I'm going to go to you. So whether it's regime change or harassing or confronting or an illegitimate administration, the left finds every verb they can to define this administration. Are they going too far?
No.
Is he?
No, he's very careful. In fact, he said the way that we overthrow governments in this country is at the ballot box.
Why don't you just say then vote? Why is it always an overthrow?
Wait a minute, Pete. In the age of Donald Trump, you're complaining about hyperbole?
Yeah.
You know what? That's a fair point. That's a fair point. But what do you think? I mean, this is Alec Baldwin plays Trump on Saturday Night Live. He makes a caricature of it. Then he walks out in a serious way on a campaign trail and makes a similar argument.
I will say asking for civility or political correctness in terms of language is one thing. But we have a record now of a Democrat shooting up a baseball field of Republicans. You have Democrats like Maxine Waters telling people to get out in the streets and get up in the faces of Republicans when they see them. We've seen Ted Cruz attacked at a restaurant, a number of cabinet officials in the Trump administration. And that's the problem here. It just adds on to this frenzy of real physical behavior that we've seen. And he's not doing anything to help kind of bring the temperature down, tell people to get out to vote. We don't really want violence. He doesn't condemn the violence that we've already seen. So, that is where we are.
You should mention this to your locker-up friend.
Which
Well,
one?
she's
Which
not
one?
currently locked up.
No, she's not currently locked up. Well,
Some of us. Anyway, this kind of rhetoric. Okay, out of bounds, in bounds. What do you think?
Well, I think I don't really judge the rhetoric that badly. It's basically, you're saying overthrow nonviolently, which means like basically get out there and vote.
Yep.
I do think that it was instructive. He's in New Hampshire. He's doing a fundraiser because we are talking about the midterms, but we're actually already talking about the 2020 election. They're in New Hampshire for a reason. Mike Bloomberg was there. He's planning to run as a Democrat in 2020. They could have 35 candidates. So, get ready for your rhetoric meter to be off the chart.
Pegged, absolutely. So Alec Baldwin says if he ran for president, Greg, he would win.
See, this is the thing that bugs me. I agree with Juan. I don't have a problem with heightened language because drain the swamp. It's an analogy. It's not like D.C. is filled with alligators, but he's saying that there are Republicans and Democrats who are swamp rats and swamp creatures. So I'm okay with it. And the only issue is that because the left traffics in radical revolutionary rhetoric, overthrow, probably not the best term, but still it's just heightened rhetoric that is tied to the ballot box, as you say. I don't see it as a big deal. However, I'm tired of him saying that if he ran, he would win because he's a real wuss. If he believes that to be true, that's my heightened rhetoric. Right. He is a wuss for saying that he could win and then not running. Because if you believe you could win, throw your hat in the ring, Alec. In fact, I think that would be a really good thing for him. It would be exciting and interesting, and he's kind of outside of the box. He's their Trump. He says a lot of incendiary things. He's had TV shows, talk shows. He's foments controversy.
He never said he was Native American.
Never said he was, and he is more Native American.
He is now, because we're all Native Americans now, according to the data.
And what a great first family if he wins.
It'd be amazing.
See Stephen Baldwin showing up.
Juan, what do you think? I mean, add him to the list on the Democratic ledger?
Entertaining. I think what Greg is saying is that this would be a wildly entertaining contest. And so, there was a piece I saw today talking about, so that's where we are. We're in the age of celebrity politics. So you can have The Rock, you can have Oprah Winfrey, and Alec Baldwin, right? But what does this say about us as a country? That's who we pick now as our leaders. You love it. You love it. You love it.
You have to raise $1 billion to raise your name ID, but you already have 100% name ID. That's a pretty good advantage. I mean, that is where we are. We live in a media world where people have to know who you are.
Yeah, so the media landscape determines your leader. It's like the tail wagging the dog. It's like, you guys are so hard on Avenatti, that lawyer. Avenatti says this.
I'd rather just compare old-fashioned resumes. We have one more thing. We do? Yes. Let's do it. Up next, one more thing on the 5. All right, Halloween is upon us. I hate Halloween costumes. They're so boring and they objectify my body.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd have some costumes. This is from the GG show that we offered that are fair and balanced.
Introducing the Fox News Favorite Faces costume collection, like the Brian Kilmeade. This costume comes complete with dark jacket, light shirt, khakis, and a bold but tasteful tie. Or how about the Steve Doocy, with his awesome-looking dark jacket, light shirt, khakis, and a bold but tasteful tie. We've even got Tucker Carlson, with his one-of-a-kind dark jacket, light shirt, khakis, and a bold but tasteful tie. Then try the Greg Gutfeld.
That was mean. All right, Juan.
Well, it's a fun Saturday afternoon for me in Washington, D.C. this weekend. I spoke at the museum about my new book, What the Hell Do You Have to Lose? Trump's War on Civil Rights. Here are some pictures from the event. As you can see, I was interviewed by John Maynard of the museum. It was a great turnout, people from all over. Fans of the 5, a major presence. Thank you so much. Here I am signing books, talking to some folks. In addition to enjoying the book talk, though, lots of people had questions about the museum and the state of American journalism today covering President Trump. It's difficult. So anyway, it was a great afternoon. My thanks to the museum and to John Maynard.
Great.
Very cool.
Dana?
Okay, so Chris Starwald has 2 boys, and they came to visit me last week and brought me these amazing things, like seasonal flavored M&Ms. So I went and I got some for everybody. This one here would be Neapolitan. Okay, you can open these up and try them here. We've got strawberry nut. Let's see, which one's this one? Number 3, raspberry. Greg, I'm gonna get you these because I think you're gonna like these. Mint chocolate chip.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah, there you go.
That's going in my pocket.
Those are really good. Espresso. Anybody want espresso?
Yes.
Oh, those are great.
And how about this white pumpkin pie? Anybody like that? White chocolate pumpkin pie.
White pumpkin pie.
White chocolate pumpkin pie.
That's very alt-right.
Well, it's I'm 2% pumpkin pie. I don't want those, but can I have some of those? Wait, you took them?
Yes.
Wait, so we have to share them. Anyway, they're really good. I can't get enough of the mint ones. Thank you to the Starwalt boys.
All right. What, did they make them?
No, they bought them and brought them to me as a gift.
I'm glad that Starwalt.
I feel like if you made M&Ms in your basement, you might have copyright exact problems just a little bit. You know, Pete, you're next. Am I next? Yes. All right. So I've never been to a Foo Fighters concert, but I'm a big fan. I'm told the concerts are always full of surprises. They were at the Sprint Center in Kansas City, and they pulled up a 10-year-old. His name is Collier Rule on stage to play Metallica. Watch this. No, Juan's asking the right questions. That's just a 10-year-old from the audience.
Wow.
Dave Grohl handed him his guitar. He immediately started playing Enter Sandman.
Wow.
And the band played it with him. The kid says, Metallica knows who I am now. Foo Fighters know who I am. Dave Grohl gave me his guitar. I played in front of the Sprint Center. I think my bucket list is done.
That's the multi-million-dollar contract now.
But they gave him the guitar, and he just started going. Do you think that's because they learn from the internet now? They just learn. I mean, from YouTube. Guitar Hero. Maybe.
We need more guitar players.
Yes, definitely. Katie?
All right, so last week I was in Israel visiting the borders of Syria, Lebanon, and Gaza. So I have some photos for you. I was there for a fact-finding mission through the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Here's a separation wall with the West Bank and Judea Samaria. This is obviously the Western Wall and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is a view into Lebanon. Those hills you can see is where Hezbollah has lots of rockets pointed at Israel. This is a sign next to the Syrian border. And also we have some photos of a fence. We went to a kibbutz, which is a little neighborhood right next to Gaza. And as you've seen with the reporting from Trey Yinks there, in Israel, there's been lots of rioting, and they think things are going to start heating up even more than they already have. So we were there getting some interesting information and briefings from officials as things get heated up, as we like to say. So thank you to FDD for taking us on that trip and giving us some information.
Very cool. All right, set your DVRs. Never miss an episode of The Five. Special reports up next. Hey, Brett.
Hey, Greg.